Hello vinyl community, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records. Another this and that video, kind of record finds, other related paraphernalia that I picked up, things like that I'd like to share with you today on a Sunday afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well. It's mighty hot where I am, so we try to stay inside as much as we possibly can. So if it's hot and humid where you are, please do the same. Keep yourself safe. Plenty of hydration, if you will. I've been able to pick up several collections in recent months. I've shown some of them in the past. A good friend of mine picked up his collection from his wife. He's deceased now, and his wife was gracious enough to share with me his record collection after the family went through and got what they wanted, and so other friends got some stuff. I kind of picked up, what was left over, and there were plenty of excellent things left over. I haven't even come close to getting everything cleaned by any means, but I got a few cleaned, and I thought I would show you what I've been listening to from that collection first. I believe the AB Dead Wax AB on Asia is the preferred pressings, and this is the 77 pressing with the AB in the Dead Wax of Asia. This one plays beautifully. I was just so pleased. Very good plus, and this harkens back to my senior year in high school. This was all over the album-oriented rock radio, and everybody had that as an 8-track or an LP. Nobody was really getting cassettes at that point, but so I've got that AB Dead Wax pressing now. I was glad to get this. Really shows you the diversity of my friend Tony's taste in music. This is a Roy Buchanan. I did not have, got a lot of his stuff, but I did not have this one, and this is Roy Buchanan Livestock, and it features the vocalist Billy Price, later to form Billy Price and the Keystone Rhythm Band. Excellent band. The vocals are real good on here. Roy Buchanan, never known as a vocalist, and so he has Billy Price doing the vocals in his band at that point. And I forget what year this was, probably 75, I believe, 1975. Really good album, plays very well. And the classic newgrass or progressive bluegrass album, John Hartford's Aeroplane. This is a good copy. It's not a VG Plus copy. It's a good solid VG copy, of course, produced by David Bromberg and featuring the dobro of Taylor and the various instruments of Norman Blake and Vassar Clemens on the fiddle. If you want an introduction to a great artist that was highly influential in acoustic music, then Aeroplane, I highly recommend. And it pays. Melinda Murphy and Norman Maslov mentioned recently in some videos about the negative feedback they were getting sometimes from people outside the vinyl community. I can't say I've experienced it that much. I think it's a lot like when you've got a friend that is so into golf, for instance, or hunting, and they are going to talk to you about that activity, that hobby that they have, that they love so much sometimes, and you just listen. You don't really have much interest in it other than it's your friend, and you want to hear what they have to say, or your relative, and you want to hear what they have to say, and you want them to share with you what they're into and what they're interested in. So I think it goes both ways. I have friends who are willing to listen, although they don't have any strong interest in my hobby at all. But they will, and I try to tell them, some interesting little stories or something if we converse about it. The Robert Ludwell Led Zeppelin 2 album story is always something that someone that's not interested in record collecting can get into, for instance. But the key is not to talk about it too much. Now I don't go on and on, and while you might share some of your passion for record collecting, be sure to try to not overwhelm them with it, and ask them about their passions and their hobbies, and let them share with you as well. So far, I haven't really felt like anybody walked away from, say, a conversation with me and rolled their eyes and said, gosh, every time I see Elliot, all he wants to do is talk about that record collecting. I don't see what he sees in it, that's a silly waste of money or whatever. I don't get that vibe, but it may be there. I'm sure some people may think that sometimes. But anyway, on the positive, the opposite of that criticism, having people know that you love to collect records and record-related materials has led me to a lot of audio equipment, a lot of records, and a lot of related things. For instance, I was out for a walk with my faithful dog Chester before this huge heat wave hit, and I was walking by my friend John's house, and he and his girlfriend were sitting on the porch, and they said, wait a minute, and John came out, went in the house, and came back with these, two of these. These are the paper cylinders from the Edison record players, and he had acquired them somewhere. He's very into history. He's a amateur historian, and so he is into that sort of stuff, Revolutionary War, American Civil War, all that sort of stuff. And there you can see these cylinders. Now I don't have anything to play at home, but I was talking to someone, and there's the other one, that shared with me that they knew people that rebuilt those, refurbished them, and you can also get a modern made one. But boy, it was like $1,700 for a modern made Edison player, cylinder player. I don't know that I want to invest that much, but I was actually surprised. He said that a rebuilt, refurbished one you could get for several $100s. I was expecting a couple of thousand or more, but I don't know the antique market for those, But he was saying, $600, $700, $800, and you could have one that was refurbished, playing well, and just accumulate some of these cylinders. Now I'm not going to go out and get one based on me having two of these Edison cylinders, but anyway. A friend of mine, he and his daughter traveled across the country to the San Francisco area, primarily to go hiking in various, national and maybe state parks around San Francisco. But I had mentioned to him that while he's there, he ought to check out the bookstore, City Lights. I was aware of City Lights, having read the beat writers, especially Jack Kerouac, when I was in my 20s, when doesn't everybody read On the Road and a few other Kerouac books in their late teens, early 20s. I know not everybody does, but a lot of people did back in my generation. And so I was kind of aware of it, but Mazzy has talked about it a few times. And I saw him a few days ago. They came by here. He and his girlfriend came by, and he brought me this. His daughter did. He said they had a really good time, and they enjoyed going through the bookstore, and they bought a couple of books there for themselves. And he brought me How, the Allen Ginsberg poem, and it includes some other poems here. And of course, this is the one that faced the bands and all that. And two of these bookmarkers. It's the 70th anniversary of city lights. And so I thought that was very kind and generous of him to drop that by to me. I look forward to reading that. I don't think I've ever read Howl from start to finish. The next thing I'll transition to is, while I've got boxes and boxes from three record collections that I've picked up in the last 6 months or so, I'm gonna be, it's gonna be forever before I get them all clean and everything. I have felt the need to actually cull my collection a little bit, because it's, it's very expansive, and it's very hard for me to part with records once I acquire them. But the knowledge that you can't play everything, and that there are certain records in here, in this collection, and this is just a small part of it, that I'll probably never play again, that are really good records that someone else ought to enjoy. Well, I've got a table at a vintage shop here in town at Main Street Market here, about 3 blocks from my house here in Lillington. But I sell records for $8 and $4. Keep it simple. I'm not there. The lady that runs the vintage shop, she sells them. If it's got a red dot on it, she gets $4. If it doesn't, it's $8. And that's what I've got. But I've got a lot of records that are worth well over $10. $10, $20, $30 records. I don't have the $500 records or anything like that, but I've got a lot of records that are worth more. So I can't really put those out there to sell, because I don't want to complicate things. So I'm going to try, I don't know if I can do it or not, but I'm going to try to go to the record show as it comes to Raleigh in about a month. And if I can make it work, and working out the logistics of me being gone from 7 a.m. in the morning until 6 p.m., 5 or 6 p.m. in the evening are difficult for me. But if I can make that work, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take records from my collection that I've got duplicates of, and records that I just have to look at and say, am I ever going to play this record? Like, for instance, Humble Pie, Savoy Brown. I like those bands. I like them, and I've got records by them and everything, but am I ever going to just sit down and put on a Humble Pie record? I'm probably not. And I've got 4 copies of Allman Brothers, Brothers and Sisters, and 3 copies of Fillmore East, and stuff like that. I need to thin out my collection. That's the cold hard facts of it. So I'm going to pull those records out, and I'm going to price them. And I'm also going to go to the vintage shop, and I'm going to take out all the records that were that have sat there, that nobody's bought, that I'd marked down to $4 and they still had some. I'm going to put them all in a few boxes, and maybe sell them for $3 or $2.50 if you buy 10 or more, or something like that, and see if I can thin that out so I can put more records that are in demand by buyers at the vintage shop. And so I'm trying to thin things out, but I need some stuff to put in there that is not real expensive, but not cheap as dirt. So I went to my undisclosed secret location. I texted my contact, and he agreed to meet me at the warehouse at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, yesterday morning. And I went through the secret warehouse, and I pulled a lot of records. Now, the thing about the records I have at the vintage shop is I clean them, put them in new sleeves, and make them, improve them considerably from what they are if you just went crate digging and you pulled these up out of the $2 bins or the $5 bins or whatever. Thus, they're a little bit more expensive. They're $4 or $8 because of that extra effort that I go to to put something out there. So I needed something that I wasn't going to clean personally, that the buyer is going to look at and say, well, it's a little dusty, but I think it's good. So I got about 200 records Saturday, and then I went through and I visually graded and made sure everything visually was a VG plus, and I avoided jackets that were in bad shape. Tried to get the better looking jackets, because that's not something that matters to me that much, but it does to a lot of buyers. And so I ended up, out of the 201 is the exact number I got, I ended up, after I just went through them, through the boxes, with 177. And I'm going to put those out there, and I'll probably ask $8 a piece. And if you buy, 6 or more, something like that, I'll knock it down to 7. But good record stuff. I don't know, David Crosby's that first solo album, if I only knew my name, or whatever it was. I'm trying to think what Asia. Just trying to think of just stuff that some Clapton and some classic rock, a lot of classic rock stuff, and some country. The country that people that don't like country will buy. Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Dolly Parton. Okay, stuff like that, and some classic rock, a lot of classic rock, Kansas and all those. But what I always do when I get home is these records I say I'm gonna resell. I have to keep some of them. So I'm going to show you what I ended up feeling like I have to keep, and these won't be a part of what I will sell. So basically, if I can pull it off, I'm going to be at the record show in Raleigh, and I'm going to have a table with $3 records, $2.50 if you buy more than a handful. These $8 records, good classic rock, classic country, and then the records that will be variously priced from my personal collection that have all been cleaned and all been play graded for over 10, stuff that will be over $10. But here are the records that I pulled and to keep personally from my trip yesterday to the honey hole. The Dregs. If I remember Steve Morris, it was the Dixie Dregs, and this is called Unsung Heroes. The Dixie Dregs, but they decided that people thought they were a southern rock band, and they're far from it. So they got them to drop the Dixie in the name and just became the Dregs. It's produced by the guitarist Steve Morris, and of course you hard rock fans know that he went on and spent about 25 years or more as a guitarist for Deep Purple. I think a hired gun for, I guess it's Deep Purple, isn't it? I think that's who it is. And mostly toured in Europe. Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66, Fool on the Hill. I kind of like this kind of popish Brazilian stuff, jazz pop Brazilian music. Let's see. And the album contains the hit single Scarborough Fair and Fool on the Hill. Say what you will about Kenny Rogers' pop career, but this is a darn good album. And the first edition was a darn good band. And especially the great song Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, an anti-war song without people really realizing it. And that's something I try to play on the guitar, very poorly, but I wanted to get Kenny's version of that. I got most of Rycooter's records, but Into the Purple Valley I didn't have. One of the few I don't have from Rye. So looking forward to listening to that. A sealed copy of the County Records High Country Kenny Baker and Joe Green. Now I've got a bunch of Kenny Baker solo albums. He was fiddler, longtime fiddler for Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys. And Jim, I've got one Joe Green album. He is, I think he sold used cars in High Point. This was recorded in High Point. It's called High Country, Kenny Baker and Joe Green, Twin Fiddles. And it has a bluegrass instrumental lineup, guitar, banjo, mandolin, bass, along with the fiddles, from 1967 on County, and it is sealed. I can't wait to open that sucker. Now, here's an interesting one. Maybe Emmylou's best album, and she had a run of about a half dozen albums that just couldn't be beat. But Elite Hotel, and I've got about 5 copies of Elite Hotel, but why did I buy this one? Look at her hands. In the original pressings, Emmylou's hands are together, and people thought that she was making a vulgar or crude hand signal with this. She's got one finger going through 2 others there, kind of like that. And they actually thought Emmylou Harris was, maybe they didn't think that she was consciously doing that or doing that on purpose or anything like that, but they thought maybe some people might think that she was. So they actually, after the first run of these, they airbrushed it so that you can't see, it doesn't look like her finger is running through the 2 fingers of her other hand. And they airbrushed it out. So I've got like 4 copies, but none of them are this. So even though I've got so many copies, I bought this one just because this has got the first pressing jacket photo on it. I don't think it really makes it worth any more, other than if you're looking for, one of the earliest pressings, but I don't think the value's up any higher. It's just an interesting little tidbit. Dusty Springfield, I love Dusty. I actually got Dusty in Memphis from this same lot, but I already have a good newer pressing of Dusty in Memphis, so I'm going to clean that one up. But I think that is actually worth more than $7 or $8, so I'm going to clean that one up and probably sell it in the other, play grade it, and if it sounds really good, sell it in the other lot of my stuff. But for me to keep Dusty Springfield, A Brand New Me, and this is a radio station copy. And America's Newest Singing Star, Dusty Springfield, on Phillips. So now I've got 3 albums of Dusty's work. Now this is a pure nostalgia keeper. I know they weren't any great contribution to the music world, other than they were important pop stars. But gosh, this goes back to my childhood, and there's the best of Sonny and Cher on that cut. Okay. And of course, it's got The Beat Goes On and it's I Got You Babe are both on here. So I got to put that in the collection. It might be one of those records that sits there and never gets played, but I've got it. And then there were some jazz records. I believe the rest of these are jazz that I picked up. And I was going to say, well, I'll have some jazz there at the show if I make it to the show, but I didn't. I decided I had to keep all of them. Count Basie and his orchestra, April in Paris, on Verb. Clifford Brown's one of my favorites. And here, still with the shrink on it. I don't care about that myself. I'll take that off probably when I clean it. Remember Clifford Brown. And what label is this on? Mercury. On Mercury. The Immortal Clifford, a legend in the world of jazz. And then Stuff Smith with guest artist Django Reinhardt. This is on that Archive of Jazz label out of LA. Everest Records, Archive of Folk and Jazz Music. Not the best recorded stuff, but they preserved a whole lot of music that never would have gotten a repressing probably if it hadn't been for them. And I always like these Pablo live record, all the Pablo records. This is live Monterey '77, Dizzy Gillespie Jam, and of course it's got John Fatus, Milt Jackson, Monty Alexander, Ray Brown, and Jimmy Smith on there. And back when digital was something you wanted, I'm sure it'll sound great. Dizzy Gillespie, New Faces, Digital Master. I'm not preoccupied with the digital and analog arguments. And finally, Lester Swings, Lester Young, a twofer here. And I'm really looking forward to cleaning this one up and getting this to play. Let's see what happens when I open it up. Oh, not too bad, a little bit of ring clean. But this is on for alright. So there are some records I want to keep clean and play. A book that I got as a gift. Some other gifts, the Edison cylinders, and a plan. But you know what they say about plans. If you want to make God laugh, make a plan. So I'll probably never make it to the record show in August, but I can always clean all these records up that I got to sell there, and sell them at my vintage shop. But it'll take a lot longer to try to turn them over quickly. All right, well, folks, I hope everybody's having a good weekend. Stay safe, and remember, be kind to your neighbors, because we are all neighbors. Take care now.